On the other side, semifinal appearance again for the Texas Longhorns. Will they be back this year? A lot of that hinges on how confident you are in Arch Manning. I think a lot of people, when you watch Arch Manning as a young high school prospect, and then you look at his first spring game performance and the steady progress that's been made the last couple years. Every time he's gotten on the field, you've seen a little growth. You've seen a little improvement. And while he carved out a little bit of a role last year as a quarterback that had some mobility that the defense had to account for, I'm even more optimistic. There's a lot more in the tank. Based on the things I've heard, they've been really, really positive with how Arch Manning is grasping the offense, his accuracy, his arm strength, the constant threat of him taking off and running with the football is always in the front of every single person's mind that's going to have to defend this young man. So I look at Arch Manning and I feel very confident about what the quarterback spot will look like for the Longhorns this year. What also gives me confidence in Arch is knowing that you can't play quarterback by yourself. I look at these weapons that he's going to have at his disposal. We'll start at running back for a moment. CJ Baxter, he got hurt last year. 2 years ago, he might have been one of their most explosive offensive weapons. He had about 700 yards on the ground. So there was a lot of optimism about Baxter. Man, if he can just build on what he did as a true freshman, there's a lot to like. Well, Baxter goes down, which then opened the door for Quintravian Wisner. Wisner goes off and has a great year. Now you have a pretty well-established 1-2 punch, guys that can do a lot of different things. And now I'm not talking about just running the football. I'm talking about contributing in the passing attack as well. So you got Wisner and Baxter that can maybe flank Arch Manning. Then you factor in quarterback run. Good luck stopping that three-headed monster there in the backfield for the Longhorns. You also have some excellent wide receivers, some guys that are up and coming, like Ryan Wingo, who I could not be more excited about here moving forward. You got DeAndre Moore, who's back as well. I mean, you have some really solid weapons in the passing game to account for also. I love the versatility of this offense and how guys can play in different positions and how Sark can use his creativity to find matchups that are really advantageous to the guys like running backs out of the backfield against linebackers or slot receivers working out of the backfield against safeties. I love where this group could potentially be heading. Now, they do have a little bit of a rebuild to account for along the offensive line. Yeah, they lose 4 out of 5 that either finished their eligibility or they left early for the NFL draft. But if you look at how Texas has recruited, they've done a pretty good job of going out, getting some high-level prospects and some guys with high ceilings that look the part physically from a length, height, width standpoint. They're going to be just fine there. And I also like the defense too. Now, the defense is going to have a lot of star power. Colin Simmons, fast forward to the middle of next year, I wouldn't be that surprised if Colin Simmons is having an all-American type of season. I think Trey Moore, him deciding to return, provides that spark and that juice off the edge. And then Anthony Hill there kind of solidifies a trio in the front seven that makes you feel really good. Like, these are 3 guys that could take over the game at any one point. That will account for some of the vacancies that they'll have in the back end because they do lose 3 of their top 4 defensive backs from this past season. But with what they do defensively and how they structure their defense, losing and having some turnover in the back end on defense is not something I'm going to lose a ton of sleep over, especially when I have guys up front that can apply the pressure that shrinks the amount of time that the opposing quarterback can have to diagnose mismatches that his offense might have against my defensive backs. So I guess I'd be more worried about the defense in the back end if they didn't have the elite presence with their pass rush up front. So I look at their schedule too. This Texas schedule is very difficult. Just looking at how it all shakes out, you're at Ohio State, brutal game. At Florida, very difficult. Oklahoma's the neutral site. You're at Georgia. And then you have Texas A&M, who comes to you there at the end of November in the final week of the season. I look at the schedule. I don't think there's enough people talking about the difficulty of Texas's schedule this year. Now, maybe people aren't as bullish on Florida as I am. Maybe there's not as many people that are as bullish on Oklahoma. Like, I think Oklahoma will play them very hard this year based on what Oklahoma has coming back. So I think this is a very difficult schedule, but looking at Texas's personnel, the progress I anticipate from Arch Manning, the supporting cast that he has to be able to create problems for the opposing defense, and the nucleus that returns on defense, I still think the playoff forecast for the Longhorns is highly likely.